Hey TV fans, Board now back with you. On this video I will be talking about episode 3 of 1899. It is called The Fog. Full spoilers from the start of this review. Another big episode, lots going on in this one. Also, I will be talking about the main bit first, which is the flashbacks involving Linny and the development with her character, some of the reveals from her past. So we once again open up, this time with her dream sequence slash flashback, and she's falling through air. Basically, she screams, and we cut to her on the ship, and we learn a couple of things about her in this episode. First of all, we learn that her teacher and handler is in fact her mother, and what I like about some of this stuff is it actually makes that character more sympathetic in this one, because she, for the first time, seems to be actively showing concerns for Lingy, and she is like advising her not to grow up like she did. We see that she's trying to train her in the right way, and that probably has something to do with her not knowing Japanese and what have you. But at first it's a bit of a mystery, because she's saying things like, you made all the wrong decisions, and just saying we shouldn't be here, and that's an interesting little turn. Then it's the mother slash teacher who's trying to discourage Linley out of this life, whereas before it was almost perceived and she was the one encouraging her, then it would just be the best thing just to go along with it and actually like training her. So that's some good stuff. But we get some really effective like flashback scenes with Linley, and the style of the whole thing. The actress is good, actually. There's some good reactions in this episode, I should say, to what's going on. Now, on the ship itself, the madam, Mrs. Wilson, the one who owns her, she's taken advantage of like an opportunity with the ship turning round. She mentions this to Linley at some point, and she sees an opportunity to cash in on her services, because they're going to be on the ship now longer than they anticipated. And there's a really uncomfortable scene in her quarters where she's examining Linley, and she just has to take this, and it's revealed then she's a virgin, or she finds out she's a virgin, and she questions this, because she says, it's surprising considering you're one of my most highly respected, talked about girls. And then the whole scene is uncomfortable, but then she has this really quite sleazy line where she says about, you've got special talents, don't you, special gifts. She has some sort of line about her describing her as like some sort of special like bird. So it's at this point, with like the flashback later in the episode, then I'm maybe assuming that she's meant to have special powers. Like, it's not just them we're seeing her flashback. If you maybe assume that there is some time travel going on in this show, and just because of the line about her having special powers, then that may well track, because in the flashback later we see it's a very like unsettling scene, but she's sort of like left in this basket and set off to sea, and it's one of those surreal scenes. You're not quite sure what's going on, and there's also a sequence, the style of sequence than the captain had in the last episode, where like the voices are calling him, and he just goes into like his own like dream space and like flashbacks. Well, with Linley in this, she's literally confronted by another geisha who looks different from her, and at first I thought it was going to be her but in a different life, or her in a flashback, but it turns out it's a girl whose life she took, identity she took, who was poisoned, I wasn't sure if it was by mistake or if she just got over anxious and just desperate and so poisoned her to take her life. That was a bit unclear. I didn't quite get that, but the result is the same, that the girl gets poisoned. And they're talking because they're sort of talking about their lives. And that's one of the major turns, is that she took this girl's life. It's just once again showing the limited options of people from certain cultures in a certain background when they're in a different culture to survive and stay alive and stuff. So that explains why she took the geisha lifestyle, and that explains why she's not actually the right nationality, but she's pretending to. And that sort of links up with her then appearing on the boat, because she gets locked in this basket and like she's freaking out, and then she washes up on the boat, and we actually see this character of is it Angel or I think he's Olok, that's it, who we've seen on the ship before, and he's trying to help her and give her food. So that immediately makes us sympathise with him, which is like good character building for him. So he actually helps her out. But yeah, that's her backstory, how she got there, and that sort of links up with what her mother's telling her. Then you made all the wrong choices. We shouldn't be here. And what you get is this like mini arc with Langley in the episode where she goes from being a very reluctant and rebellious almost geisha to just accepting her fate, just accepting then this might be the lesser of two evils, because by the end of the episode she walks into her mother's their quarters and just says, "You can tell Mrs. Wilson I'm ready now." And so she is set up with Anton, who we saw Mrs. Wilson talk to in the previous episode. So she's arranged for like a date with them for like the services. And Lindy does like a special little geisha style performance. And then she's about to strip off, but Anton, actually showing some decency, says, "No, you don't have to do that. That's not why I paid for your services." And the next thing you know, Anton has like some sort of a seizure and like passes out, and she's there by his side. So that's an interesting development, which seems to connect to some of the other weird stuff on the ship. So we obviously get some fallout from Ada's death at the end of the last episode, a really great hook at the end of that episode. And things start developing quite quickly on board, where we start getting these different sides and factions, and it becomes clear what side everyone is going to be on. Because the captain makes the decision not to tell the family, and there's some mystery hanging over why he makes that decision. You get, once again, some commentary on the sexism of the era, because they've got like this like upper class, quite snooty doctor who does like the examination, and Marina's there, and she makes the point then she checked her over, the girl Ada, and spoke to her and noticed no sign of her being ill or anything, dismisses any chance of like killing herself, because this arsehole even makes a suggestion that she might have taken her own life. But he just is being sexist and dismisses Marina, says she's not thinking straight, or all this like stereotypical old-fashioned stereotypes over a woman. And he's just concerned about getting his breakfast, so he can't get out of there soon enough, not before making some awful comments. So that's kind of the status quo, where the captain decides not to tell the family. But then later on, one of his main crewmen, the bearded guy, he actually does tell the family. He makes that decision. And at first you're thinking, okay, he's got a little bit of morality, he feels it's the right thing to do. But then as the episode develops and he starts encouraging them to rebel against the captain and all his decisions, his decision not to turn around the boat, not to continue on to New York, because he's made the decision to return to Europe with the other ship, with the Prometheus. And by the end you just get this rebels, them all, this crew guy gives them all guns and all that, and because once they find out the Nada's dead, the mother of the family is like preaching to God and what have you, and they're all willing to take over the ship from the captain. The daughter also, I think it's the daughter anyway, is loaded up with the gun, but the mother's leading the charge. And there's also a term with Christian in this episode, because we get some more stuff with him and the the rich guy. I think his name's Anton. He's been seeing or off and on, because this is the one where they have like a more intimate moment where he's like feeling him through the bars. But he comes back from that and he discovers Ada's body, and he discovers it last from all the other family members. And this is where we see like a turn in Christian's character, where once again he's influenced by the parents, and he is almost shamed into doing something about this and going on this witch hunt where they start looking for the child, start taking over the ship. And the daughter is trying to persuade him out of doing this, but he's had his head turned, and that's what this is all about. It's all about cults and the influence of cults, and just going to extremes and not really thinking about the best way to conduct yourself and to handle things. So speaking of Marina and Ick, the captain, as I was earlier, he shows her the ribbon he found on board the Prometheus, and it's a ribbon then belonged to his daughter, belonged to Nina. So he talks Marina into going back aboard the Prometheus and to looking for bodies, because he's convinced there must be the bodies of the crew somewhere. But also he wants to find the logbook with the names of everyone on the ship. So they go aboard, and this is just a good intimate like character scene between the two of them, and this is where the fog of the title comes in, because they're going, it's a foggy night, they're going through the fog, it's all quite spooky and atmospheric, but it also leads to a very intimate scene, because she opens up to him and says she had a miscarriage a few years ago, and because she mentioned something in a previous episode to Ada, and she can't have children, so this is like an add-on to that. But anyway, they start looking around the ship. He finds the logbook, but they can't actually find any other bodies, because they sort of try the Infernus at some point, and they can't seem to find any other bodies. And it's when they return to the ship, then these rebels have all taken over, and they kidnap the captain at gunpoint. Marina's somewhere else at this point, but they take over the ship. So Jerome's locked up, basically the captain's locked. This is the very end of the episode. We see them hold him at gunpoint and lock him up. The same happens to Olek, the one who helped Laney. They're all locked up. The rebels are taking over the ship, and that's the dramatic cliffhanger of the episode. We get Killing Moon by Echo and the Bunnymen, another excellent choice. Fits the mood of the show. Very, I don't know, like futuristic, very like otherworldly. And then the other big hook at the end of the episode is, as all this is going down And obviously the rebels are going to try and like change the course of things. So Daniel works his little magic with his like symbols, and he makes the ship disappear. Now I'm assuming it was unclear if it was the Prometheus or like the main ship, but he makes one of them disappear anyway, which is going to make their plans a whole of a lot harder. So that's the other big thing. The rebels are taking over the ship, but also Daniel makes the ship disappear. So thanks for listening. That's episode 3 of 1899. I will be back with more soon. Like and subscribe. Share me out on social media. And look out for more TV reviews soon. Thanks for listening. See you guys.